National Fire Radio.
What's up, everybody? It's Pip here on the Size Up by National Fire Radio, where what you do off the job matters. And as always, I am excited today to have a great, amazing guest who I've been trying to get on the show for a while. But prior to doing that, I do my the cold open, as they call it in the entertainment biz, or however you want to look at that, where we joke around and things like that. But unfortunately, today, I'm not going to do that kind of a cold open, and it sucks. And I hate to have to do something like this, but I feel like I have to because it's really important. So just yesterday, we as the emergency services community, but also myself, lost an old friend, mentor, partner, and kind of the dude who got me where I am today, or set me on a course that got me to where I am today. And it's crazy to think back so long. But that person was Dave Dalrymple, better known as Double D in the extrication world, by far like the foremost mind when it came to how to disentangle a car around a person. I was fortunate to stumble across Dave, I guess is a good way to put it. Work in EMS. We worked for Robert Wood Johnson EMS way back when. I became a medical communicator. He was a medical communicator, fancy term for dispatcher, or dirty button pusher, as we called ourselves, way back when. And he was like, "Hey, Pip, you're cool. You like extrication. You have some certs. Why don't you come and teach with me?" And I'm like, "Dave, I take your classes. Like, what do you mean teach with you?" And he brought me into his company, and dude, I had a blast, man. I got to teach around the country. I am in one of the fire engineering DVD extrication. You know what DVDs are, kids. It's probably on YouTube now. Extrication DVDs that we put out there. And people would come up to me in 555 and be like, "Aren't you the guy from the extrication DVD? Are you talking about fitness?" But that was all Dave. And Dave got me again where I am today, and we kind of lost touch over time for various reasons. I stopped working for the company, but that got me into more of the fitness end of things and 555, and without him knowing it, that kind of separation that we had way back when catapulted me into getting to this place that I am today. So I definitely want to thank Dave for that. And I definitely want to thank him for everything he did for the emergency services community by putting that knowledge that he had in that crazy ass brain of his out there and helping so many people well more beyond what you can just do by not doing anything. And to speak to kind of our separation a little bit, and this is where it gets more emotional and it sucks, but God, this wasn't supposed to happen. As she texted me too. Tracy always says there's a reason and a season for everyone. Man. And Dave's season was in my life for that reason. To get me here. God. So thanks for that, Dave. Just keep that in mind, folks. You meet people in life and they come in and out of it, but they're important, and that's what matters. So, as we say, rest easy, buddy. And as Vandy reminded me, Dave, may the force be with you, buddy. Allison, jump in anytime here. You could help me out at the end of this. Please.
No, I do appreciate that you said there's a reason and a season for everyone, and I'm so incredibly sorry. As I shared with you, we lost our strength coach on Friday. We had an offsite conference, and he got struck driving his motorcycle by a driver who didn't see him. And so I totally understand your pain and of the loss, because people who are mentors and coaches have such a profound impact on our life, more so than anyone can ever fathom and recognize. So I hear you.
You're right. Right? And isn't it? It's something too that when you're in the moment with those people, even though you appreciate them for being a mentor, being a coach, and what they're giving you, you really don't appreciate it until they're gone, is what sucks.
Yeah,
I feel
I
like.
know. That you got me all emotional too, because
I know
as
this. I didn't even get to
gotten
introduce you yet, but here we are. I told
yeah,
you I apologize to you for this. I do, but I'm happy. I'm happy to have you, and we're gonna pull this one together. But it's one of
yeah,
those things where like it's appreciating being in the moment. And when I mentioned my wife, and I don't know how much you follow me or Rick told you about me, my wife works in palliative care. So this is her every day meeting folks on the end of their journey. And
yeah,
what you think she's taking care of the patient, right? To make their transition the easiest as possible. But in reality, she's also taking care of their friends and family who are there with
yep,
them. And that's why I can get so emotional and you can get so emotional as to talk about that reason and a season that people come in
yep,
and out of your life. And it just is so powerful. I hate to say that I love her job, but I do love
yeah,
what she does in her job, right?
yeah. No, that's I really commend her and her psychological resiliency because I can't imagine it's a easy job.
Oh my God, that word. I have those two words written down here to talk to you about resiliency. But let's just go. Anyway, your name is Allison Bragger, who I didn't even ask you if that's really how you pronounce your last name. I'm just running with it. Is it correct?
It's a long A, but it's okay. I am a humble bragger.
That's okay the way it goes because you are. Um, you are one of the, in my opinion, foremost minds out there when it comes to sleep and studying sleep and that word resiliency that you used. And I probably left a whole bunch out of how you got here because when I follow you on social media, I notice that you're either wearing one of three things. You're either in gym clothes, a military dress uniform, or like a ball gown is the other one that I'm gonna go with on that.
Yeah.
I feel like I see you, and it's like you rotate. Like, is that your algorithm for social media? Like, how do I rotate these three things?
I once had a mentor who said, always plan your career around your lifestyle and not your lifestyle around your career. And that's just always what I've tried to do. I appreciate fitness. I appreciate, life in the military and being a soldier, but I also appreciate fancy things. So I've managed to insert myself in and out of these three lives. So,
I don't think anyone else could say that better, right? Because you have to appreciate all those things in this journey that we have on life. Like,
yeah.
I agree with you. Like, I appreciate not the military end of it, but on the fire service end of it, I appreciate that too. And I definitely appreciate the fancier things. Um, And a little known fact is that when I got asked to do this size up podcast, part of it was because kind of my boss Jeremy was like, "Bro, you're like a stylish dresser, and you got the mohawk, and you eat good food, and you're a beer snob, and like all these fancy things. I want you to talk about that, the good things in life, not the fire service." It's evolved into much more than that, but we have to appreciate these things on this journey we're on, right?
Yeah, I always try to be the different of those three lives of everyone else in there. So, like in the military, I mean, when it comes to leadership, my leadership style, it's very different from everyone else, but that's because I had a life before the military. So I try to be as army like as possible. In the army, when it comes to science, it's the opposite, right? Like that's the only time I will wear my dress uniform. So when I go to military events and I have to present, I don't wear my uniform, but I also work for an organization where I don't have to wear my uniform. But then when I go to science events, I make that power move and I wear my uniform. And then, yeah, I like to get dressed up and, whether it's a military event or a external civilian event, I do the same thing. I wear my mess dress uniform for the civilian event, wear a nice ball gown for the military event. I just always try to be a little bit different than everyone.
I love that. I love that for you. And I love that be the different because I feel like when you're being the different, that's you. That's your individuality coming out. And to be honest, I didn't notice that on your social media. Like I never put all that together until you said it because that's social media and you don't notice those things. But it's so great. And like thinking about you striking the power move with a bunch of like science geeks in the dress uniform to be like, listen here, science geeks. I'm a science geek like you, but look at what I'm wearing right now. I love every minute of
Yeah, I also realized though, like I just came back from the American Psychiatry Conference that I left that world for a reason, and I'm so glad I didn't return to it because it's hard to communicate with scientists. It sounds horrible to say, but it's they just speak a different language, and I realize that's why I never really fit into that community because I keep it real and they keep it real technical.
very technical. And it's so weird, like how life's intersect. But like my wife is doing a palliative care research project in the emergency department, and
Yeah,
she cut her teeth in the emergency department. That's where we met, and she's like, I hate research. This is why I don't do research projects. This is why I
yeah,
didn't get into that end of medicine. And it's like the
yeah,
same thing you're saying right now. Like
yep,
your life leads you where you need to be. And then as we mature, you kind of find those new places, right? And you find how to, again, like you said, be the different.
yeah, exactly.
All right. So how did you get here? Like, were you always sciencey? Like, were you the science person in high school? Were you the athlete in high school? Were you the like go army in high school? Like, how did you get to where you are?
So I actually, when I grew up, I wanted to be an astronaut or an athlete. Like I wanted to be an Olympic level athlete. So I feel like I spent the first half of my life trying to be an Olympic athlete or a professional athlete. I was ironically able to do that at some point. I was a professional athlete for the Army. A few years ago, the Army created a CrossFit team, and so basically for 2 or 3 years, that's all I did was train and compete around the world until COVID happened. I mean, we still competed throughout COVID because we just essentially would compete in states that didn't believe in COVID. Um, so,
Go
uh,
army.
Yep, exactly. I mean, it's strategic marketing, right? At the end of the day, I mean, I also worked the field support hospital at the Javits Center in New York, right when COVID started. So, quite honestly, I have adaptive immunity to COVID that most people don't have, being in like the valley of death. So that's pretty much like all I cared about my first half of my life was how do I make an Olympic team and or become a professional athlete. And then I think the other half of my life, I realized like I wanted to be an astronaut. So, I'm in that pipeline still to hopefully one day be a real astronaut, unlike Katy Perry. And
Oh, we'll just cut it out right now. Like, not a real astronaut. Okay, I got you.
it would have been fine if she just didn't say what she said. You know what I mean? Like everyone expects rich people to go to space, but um, how she said
Yeah,
it,
I
like
agree.
dismissed the I mean, all of us who are in the astronaut pipeline have been training for a lifetime for that. Um, but regarding military service, it's because of 9/11. So my mom's family is from New York. And so, I saw the direct impact of that then, but then when I went to college, so I was a junior in high school when 9/11 happened. I was getting recruited at the time by West Point in the Naval Academy. Um, my parents wouldn't let me go, even though like I knew I was going to get into both schools because I was getting recruited for track and field. So I always had that call for selfless service in my mind. And then actually, when I was at Brown, so I went to Brown for undergrad. Um, I mean, there was quite a few of my classmates who were orphans, right? Or only had one parent because, one thing about, I guess, the Ivy League circle is a lot of those people go to Wall Street, right? And work Wall
Yeah.
Street after they graduate from one of the Ivy Leagues. And that was true of most of my classmates. Like I had quite a few classmates who within the last year or two had lost a parent when the twin towers fell. So I think that call to service had always been in my mind. So when I had the opportunity to join when I was a fellow to like 10 years later when I was doing a fellowship at Walter Reed, there's no question that I wanted to be in the military.
No, that's like when you look back too on like 9/11, and it's interesting your parents saying that to you because when I finally spoke to my sister that day, I had made a quick call to her to be like, "Hey, I'm going. I'll call you when I can." And she said, "I love you," and off I went because I was working at the time, EMS.
Yeah.
When I got in touch with her, whatever time it was, we got back 11 midnight, whatever time it was. I finally, because I lost sell everything that day, right? Like we all did.
Yeah.
But one of the first things she said to me was like, "You cannot enlist tomorrow." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Wait, what?" Like I was still processing what I just saw and what happened that day. And that was like her first type of a thing. And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And then I thought about it for a bit, but I was getting ready to get hired by the fire department. I thought that that was coming, and I didn't. But it's that same kind of call to service, right, that you were
Yeah.
talking about. And it's interesting how you equate it by being at Brown, with children of folks that were working on Wall Street that day, because in the emergency services, we do tend to forget all the other folks that lost their lives that day, right? We focus on the firefighters and the police officers and their children and things, but so many people lost their lives that day. So it's
Yeah.
interesting that that led you into your service to me.
Yeah. No, it's what's interesting about Brown too is I don't know if you know is up until a few years ago, uh ROTC and a military presence was banned on campus. It is the most pro peace, anti war, anti government institution in the United States. It is the most liberal, hippy dippy institution. And what's funny is some of my friends and I who worked in the sleep research center there, we're all in the military now. We all work, are sleep researchers or sleep physicians for the Army. Like it just I guess, having that institutionalized approach again wanted forced me to be different, right? I didn't want to be part of their general population norm. I wanted to be outside the bubble.
Right, but like when you say that, right, this is going to be the whole talk in this whole episode, right? It's almost like a negative connotation to be the different, whatever your different is. And I feel like, I'm a little bit older than you. Obviously, you were a junior in 2001, and I was not. I'm only a few years older than you though, because I was a pretty young EMS responder then. I'm not that old, but we were brought up in this world of like, you have to kind of fit in a box, right?
Yep.
You have to color within the lines. I
Yep.
feel like today, especially being a parent with my boys, I'm like, screw the lines, boys. You color out of those lines as far as you want to for the rest
Yep.
of your lives, please. Because those are the change makers, right? Like what you're doing, you're a change maker in the Army that they didn't even know they needed prior to folks like you, probably.
Yeah. And I think that's what I'm actually, I don't know if Rick told you, I'm going to West Point next to teach in 2 weeks. And that's my approach there is to like show cadets, you're right, they have this very institutionalized, like strategic vision for like what it means and how to become a West Pointer, but you have to have some individuality, like individuality in terms of leadership styles and philosophies matters because otherwise like you're not going to win a war or you're not going to get the alternative course of action which usually ends up being the one you take when you're doing wargaming and stuff like that.
Yeah, and just you can't be in that mold. We see it in the fire service where you have a leader who feels like they have to be this certain way. Like, I have to be like a military leader. Look,
Yeah.
the fire service is paramilitary, and that is a very loose term. But I think our little what we have together is we both wear fancy uniforms and flair on our uniform when we need to. That's about my extent of where it should go, right? You need to be that adaptable leader to work with the variety of people that you're working with, right? Everybody's different.
Yeah, no, I mean that's where I work, we're the schoolhouse for special forces, and that's one of the attributes we look at is adaptability. There's 8 different attributes, but adaptability is the first one. You have to know your audience. That's what I always say.
You're so right. And now, see, I'm not crying anymore on this podcast, but that was a big thing that my friend Dave taught me in early teaching. Was like, know your audience, know
Yep.
who we're lecturing to when it comes to these things before we get there, because we were lecturing to folks in other states who, if they go to one major car collision a year, that was a lot. And then we
Mhm.
were lecturing to people who literally cut people out of cars more than I ever have, but
Yeah.
you had to adapt to their knowledge and their style of things and take our knowledge and give it to them. So that adaptability is clutch.
Yep. Nope. Absolutely. So, it's my friend said this perfectly last week because I grew up in a rough town. Like, I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, which at the time people don't believe this. We had the highest murder rate in the country when I was graduating high school. Like, our murder rate per capita was higher than Camden, New Jersey. It was higher than Compton, California. Um, and I grew up like, you know, uh, I grew up in Youngstown, but the Youngstown hasn't come out of the girl. So, like, there's sometimes I say things that are a little, a little hood, or I have like hood-like behaviors, and people are always like thrown for a loop, especially
They
when
were.
I'm in these like communities of affluence now, right? Like, is science, there's a lot of highly educated people who grew up like from a family of affluence, and so it always throws people for a loop that this highly educated person like loves to drink Colt 45s and smoke Black and Mild.
did,
It really
did we just
true.
become best friends? Like now I see what you do with Rick, not just working out. Like I probably
Oh
see the
yeah.
off camera-ness of it
Yep,
all.
that's
Like,
right.
and
He's my
you're
Black and Mild brother. So
I love that about you. I love that you threw New Jersey under the bus there with the Camden comment. But listen, Youngstown did not have the car theft highest numbers like Newark, New Jersey did. So if we're
oh,
gonna
I
throw it
can't,
back,
yeah.
we you
Yeah.
can't take credit for all of them in that type of a
No,
way.
ours is because so Youngstown's very famous for a mob. There's an Italian mafia. There's lots of documentaries about it. So essentially, that was around the time when the FBI got involved and started arresting uh, like longtime mob officials, and organized crime, for better or for worse, keeps crime organized, right? Like, before then, like, most violence in the city was mob related, but when they dissolved the mob, what happened was um, crime became rampant, right? There were still drug trades going on. There were still turf wars amongst the games, but now they had no one to command and control it. Um, so yeah, I probably have a very different viewpoint on organized crime compared to most people in the
It's
world. But
100%. And I love that for you. Again, like, this is what I love about the size up, folks. We never know what we're going to talk about and where
yeah,
things are going to go. And who would have guessed that we would be talking about black and milds and organized crime being organized when we're supposed to be talking about resiliency and sleep studies and how it
yes,
affects us?
exactly.
But these, again, it goes back to that adaptability a little bit, right? When you're lecturing to emergency service providers or the military about why sleep is important, if you're not breaking up with stories like this or little anecdotes or being yourself, me included, will all literally be asleep in your class. That'd be the best
Yeah.
sleep I've ever had.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's why, I know a lot of people when they lecture, they have a script that they follow. I always go off script. And it depends on the audience who I'm talking to, right? If I'm talking to a bunch of men uh, who are in a very tactical environment, I'm not gonna, be Miss Allison. I'm gonna be, my friends always call me Big Al. So, I'm gonna be one of the boys.
And those folks too, I've done a few things with the folks that you're talking about now, and you
Yeah,
definitely have to be one of the boys. And
yeah,
my like vertical challengeness when I'm with those boys, I'm usually like, okay, guys, here's what we're gonna do. You're taller and wider than me in every way, but I'm kind of in charge right now, so we're gonna have some
yep,
fun here together. Please
yep,
don't kill me while we're here, right? But you
yeah.
have to do that, and that's
You have to.
life again. To talk about parenting, like to teach my kids, like you got to be adaptable. Like, yes, we all follow a script, right? I pull up to a structure fire, we're all following a script,
Yep,
but the people who don't succeed stick to that script. The
yep,
folks who do succeed follow the script, but they adapt to it.
yep, yep. You have to. You have
Yep.
to be
And
a
that's again,
chameleon.
yeah, 100%. And that astronaut pipeline you're in, I'm sure part of it is they're looking for astronauts that are different than all the other astronauts before them, right? In a way.
Yeah, so the selection criteria seems to be the same, but and that like they haven't changed the values, like the attributes and values of what they're looking for is the same and hasn't changed, just like us, right? We have a certain set of attributes and values, and how you get to that point doesn't matter. But I think that's what they're looking for, is who's able to get to that point doing something that is very creative and innovative, but still has those values, right? It really is like
Yeah.
a, because you're in situations where you're faced with moral and ethical dilemmas, and so it's a matter of which door you open.
Yeah, for sure. Well, don't open the door to outside because that's bad from what I
Right,
understand in space.
exactly. Yeah,
I
exactly.
too used to want to be an astronaut. And then, as an 80s kid, I watched Space Camp and was
Yeah,
like, nope, I don't even want to go to Space Camp. What if that accident happened to me? Like, I'm out. I'm out. I'm not that kid.
yeah. No, my wife likes to say I'm the person who's looking to die in the most interesting way. So
Well, if you're going to do it interestingly, right?
exactly.
There is
It's
that
going to
in it.
be like I am supposed to go on Mars and set up the first colony on Mars, knowing I died there. I'd still do it.
Oh my God. See, and that's like, people like you specifically want to go and do that. Like, how awesome is that in life when you're like, yeah, I want to do that. Like, I want to go to Mars.
Yeah, I mean, we all die eventually, and you have to, like, not to get dark, but um, in the pursuit of science, and I want to be the first real live Martian, right? Our first real living version of Matt Damon.
And just be there. Listen, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But you did say the word, and we talked about it a little bit, but science. So science
Mhm.
has it always been your thing? Like since you blew up the garage when you were younger, Allison, or
Yeah,
no?
I mean,
Like
I used to do the thing, when you take a magnifying glass and like burn ants and stuff. Yeah, no, it always has been. I think it's just maybe as how I was wired. I mean, my parents are working class parents. My dad was a butcher. Um, actually, talk about a mob story. My dad actually was held at gunpoint in his butcher shop and locked in his freezer by someone from the mob. Uh, so, he was
it's a
living.
slow
Yep,
week in the butcher shop, I guess, huh?
exactly. Yeah. And my mom's the same way. My mom was a social worker for welfare, her whole life. So, like, I didn't have parents with advanced degrees. And same with my mom and dad's, my grandparents. Actually, my
Yep.
grandfather owned a bar that was shut down after someone from the mob, like, got shot right outside of it. So I have a very
You
close
really are into this mob
connected
thing. Like
ties to.
I feel like do you talk about this with anyone else? Is it because I'm Italian? Like this mob thing is
No,
really
it's if you grew up in
dominating.
Youngstown, you are connected in every which way.
Gotcha.
Like essentially, most people who live and have grown up and have generations of family in Youngstown have worked for the mob in some capacity, whether directly or indirectly, whether they knew it or not. So, um,
I have a strange connection with Ohio where I just keep meeting people from Ohio. Like it's out of
oh,
control.
it
Like I
happens
never
all
want to go
the
back to
time.
Ohio
Yeah.
in my life, but everyone is from there, I feel like.
Well, I think what happens, and this is what happened with me, is right. Like I knew Youngstown was, I mean, it's still like in economic decline. It hasn't seen a renaissance like the rest of the Rust Belt. Like Pittsburgh and Cleveland have come out of their Rust Belt economic decline to now be like hubs of technology. Youngstown is a pretty impoverished place, and it was very violent when I was growing up. So, like, the only way you could get out of town was to be an athlete. So that's, I think all of us, that's what we focus on, are like, we knew that if you were athletic, because even if you were
You
smart,
could
that
go.
wasn't going to be enough. But if you were an athlete, that was your ticket out of town. And so I think I realized that from an early age.
So and your sport too, again, we're all over the place here, but track and field, which events?
So I was a gymnast. I'll preface that because I did gymnastics from the age of 2. And then I ended up being one of the first female pole vaulters in the state of Ohio. My junior year of high school, girls were actually allowed to pole vault. So my track coach, she's nationally known track coach, she like basically told myself and a few other gymnasts on the track and field team that we were going to be pole vaulters. But before that, I was a hurdler and a long jumper and a sprinter. So makes sense, right? With my gymnastics background, you asked me to run anything more than 400 meters, I'm going to tell you no. I'm still very much like that today, even though I've done a few like marathons and ultra marathons. But that's more of like a one and done thing. I don't actually enjoy running. I enjoy sprinting.
It's more of the challenge of it all, right? And then you were like, just to even again all over the place, but you're like, gymnast, pole vaulter, track athlete. Oh, look, there's CrossFit where you put
Yeah.
bumper plates in. I can do all these things, right? And you just kind of fell right into that. I'm sure.
Yeah, so that was I really missed okay, so where I went to grad school um not because of the person I was working with who ended up being a world-class researcher. I went there because I was trying to make an Olympic team in track and field and pole vault. And at the time, the University of Akron and the coach at Kent State University were the two best multi-event pole vault coaches in the country. Because I had always like improved throughout college. And so it's like right at that cusp where if I had a really good coach, it could be the difference between being like a good Division One collegiate athlete and being an Olympian. So I, I fell into science not because again of wanting to be a scientist, it's because of wanting to be a high level athlete. Science has
Literally
always been
wanting
an
like it's
afterthought. Like I hate to
pole
say it,
vaulting
it's
for the
always been an
Olympics is like two
afterthought.
people, right? Pole vaulting in the Olympics
Yeah.
is like two people go, right? Like that's it. You're like
Yeah, actually,
it.
what's really cool is the reigning Olympic champion from 2020 and 2024, Katie Moon. I used to see her pole vault in high school because when I was in grad school at Kent State, I was coaching for a local high school in Northeast Ohio, and that's where she's from. So it's really cool to see like someone from Ohio, like me being truly like the first female pole vaulter in the state of Ohio to now have a younger female from Ohio be the reigning Olympic champion is pretty cool. And she was coached by Dennis Mitchell, the guy at the University of Akron. So it's, yeah.
Oh my God, this ride. I was not ready for this ride. I don't think anybody who's still listening is like, what are they talking about? And how interesting is this woman? Like, I don't even know. I don't know where to go next. Like, I want to talk about all the work you've done with sleep and how important it is and give some folks some tips. But I'm like, what else are you going to tell me here that you've done? Like, you got anything? You got another one or two before we get to spend a little bit of time on sleep?
Well, I mean, so I'll integrate sleep within that. So I think that's why I got fascinated by sleep is because that was the one thing I always did well as a kid. And I attribute my parents, which I realize now as a scientist, right? Oh, if your parents have good sleep habits, then their kids will have good sleep habits, right? Like I always say that sleep was a family affair. I mean, I had two working class family parents who went to bed by like 10:30, 11, and woke up at 7. And so my brother and I had that like regimented schedule around sleep that if I had homework left to finish, I was strategic in that I come home from gymnastics at like 9 p.m. and I'd eat and I do an hour and a half worth of homework and I do all the homework for my first few periods in the morning. And then if I had homework left to finish, I would do it the next day, like in those classes and or um, lunch. And I mean, it worked out. I was the valedictorian of my high school and it was a very, very large high school. So I
Why
think my
not?
strategy worked. Uh, but but yeah, I just always kept that mindset, and I did the same in college. How I ended up falling into sleep research in college is I tell people the story, and it's so random. Is So there were a few classes where, as athletes, like we call them gut courses, where essentially you didn't have to do a lot of work to get an A. And that was necessary because we traveled the country year round, right? Like we had the
Sure.
fall off, but we had indoor, outdoor track. And like sometimes we'd get on a bus and take a 14-hour bus ride from Providence, Rhode Island to like Durham, North Carolina to compete in the Duke relays. We would get on a plane and fly across the country to Stanford for a weekend. And so I had a really demanding schedule and I had to be efficient. So one of the courses that is a gut course was the psychology of sleep course taught by Dr. Mary Carskadden, who is a legend in the field. She is the reason why there are delayed school start times for middle schoolers and high schoolers. She almost won the Nobel Prize. And in fact, I feel like she got robbed of the Nobel Prize for her work. Um, and yeah, so she taught that class, and I was like, oh, I want to study sleep. Like, I always had in the back of my mind, like, your time as an athlete is short, right? Like at some point in your late 20s, early 30s, like your clock is up and you have to find
Yeah.
something else. So for me, being a sleep researcher and a neuroscientist was the something else.
Well, you just like hit the hot button topic of any parent social media group in middle school and high school start times.
Yep.
So for the folks out there who are not parents listening, right now my high schooler, we go in the way you're by science. You're not supposed to go. High school starts
Yep.
first, middle school starts second, grammar school starts third,
Yeah,
and the science
that's
says,
worse.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, it should be grammar, middle school, high school. So what happens is your circadian clock starts delaying, phase delaying, that's the technical term, when you hit puberty. And like for most women and men, your brain does not finish developing until you're about 25. So you just continually delay and delay, and it's nearly impossible to change. I have colleagues that I used to work for in Mary's lab, this woman named Stephanie Crowley, like she has her entire dissertation and her work after her dissertation are failed experiments of trying to get the biological clock of a teenager to not delay through light and melatonin and other means. It's part of human life. And so that's what Mary's research found is like, if the high schoolers are starting at a time that is more aligned with their biological clock, then there's fewer behavioral problems. There are greater test scores. They're going to thrive compared to if they're starting at 7 a.m.
And this all makes 100% sense to me, and I totally see it. But for the folks out here who are not parents and not in those groups to watch all the arguments, the amount of change that would have to go on in scheduling and sports and after school activities and all these things, every school district would have to do it. And I mean, come on, we can't even get a school district to talk to the other. It's like the fire department. One mutual aid department can't work with the other mutual aid department. So even though the science is backing it, the change would be like monumentous. And I
Yeah,
do know there's schools out there that have.
well, so there's state rules. I think that's how it goes. Is like if it goes to a state legislator, then they can make those mandates. So I know, for example, the state of Washington was the very first to adopt Mary's research. Um, and I believe the state of Virginia is like that too. So it has to get to that level. It's just like, so we lobby on Congress for getting rid of daylight savings time, right? We know that daylight
Yes.
savings time, especially the spring forward, is associated, you know, this as an EMS worker, with more heart attacks, more accidents the day after we spring forward. And so, um, you, to make those policy changes, you can't ever do it at the local level. You have to take it to the highest level possible to include Congress. And so that's something we've done with our like working group. We meet with different um, congressional representatives and or congressmen yearly to like hopefully one day um, pass this end daylight savings time bill.
One day, this we don't get into politics here, but I'm gonna just go a little political. This dude is signing things for all kinds of stuff, and he said he's gonna sign one for this, and still hasn't. It's the only
I
thing I
know.
want him to
Well, we
do
just
is
have to get
change
it.
the damn.
I think the issue is, and so I'm when it comes to my like political viewpoints, I grew up in Ohio, right? We're all pretty moderate growing up in Ohio. It's just how it is growing up in that environment and especially working in the military. Like I have to see both sides
Sure.
because I owe that to my soldiers. Like just like with wargaming, I need to consider all courses of action. So it also makes sense that my political viewpoints are like right in the middle. But I think that's the issue, and that's why sometimes I get so frustrated with scientists. Is they because most of them fall as like hella blue, like they don't even want to engage with this administration, and that's the
Yep.
wrong answer. Like, and I've had this conversation with some people who do lobby for more funding for sleep research. I can't do that, right, because I'm in active duty uniform. But I've told them, I was like, you need to meet with Republicans and you need to meet with certain Republicans, for example, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I've known her from when she was in Atlanta. She used to go to my CrossFit gym. Like she's an avid CrossFitter. She's an avid advocate for health and wellness, independent of her political viewpoints. You can't let her political viewpoints like derail this mission because guess what? They are humans too. They need to sleep, and they care about their sleep and understand that sleep is important for performance. So that is my pedestal to get on, and I think that's why it hasn't gone anywhere is because I fault not him. I fault the scientists of my field because they don't want to even interface with any Republican.
It's again, it's that be the different, right? And there's a reason that politicians get what they want because they have their lobbying this going to where
Yeah,
they want to be in their direction. So you need to somehow figure out how to fall off that script and get what you want to move forward. And
yeah,
I think with something too like sleep, even in the fire service, we still have people like, oh, don't let the people in your city know you have beds in the firehouse. What do you think? They don't know that by this point, or they never knew that? Like, there's videos dating back to black and white horse videos of firefighters
yeah,
jumping out of bed because we live there. You want
yeah.
us to sleep, right? That's what we want to be telling people now because you want me to be well
Right,
rested, as one of my
exactly.
favorite captains said, right?
Yeah,
So and being very cognizant of your time, we do have to spend a few minutes on sleep and the emergency
yes.
services, right? But you want me to be well rested so that at 3 a.m., when I need to make the most critical decision of your life, my life, and my firefighters' lives, I'm ready to go, correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think in my experience, so I do a lot of sleep and fatigue management planning and education for senior leaders in the military. Like I've traveled, across all major geographical combatant commands to all centers of excellence within the Department of Defense. And through my experience, and even my own experiences as a former company commander, the leaders that don't embrace rest and recovery, like automatically, I don't care if I knew nothing else about them, they're not a good leader. Like they
Yeah.
after that point, you can't tell me that they have any good leadership qualities because they do not let their people rest. And I'm not even talking about sleep, just like having like a 5 to 10 minute mental reset. Um, there's nothing you can do to convince me that that person has any good leadership skills.
Yeah, you need that. That 5 to 10 minute mental reset, even on an emergency scene, like a long drawn out emergency scene, to be able to step away and just have a minute or two to be like, what just happened? Let me
Yeah.
process this really quickly. Then I can get back into it. Teaching young firefighters about that. Like, hey, when you come out and you're getting a bottle changed, you need to take that minute to be like, what the hell just happened and what am I going to do next? Those little things really do add up and help for sure.
Oh yeah, and it also it improves their own performance, it improves morale, and improves welfare. I experienced that as a company commander. So I had a fleet of truck drivers, right, and like most of them were out on the road driving these trucks around the country, recruiting for the army. But the soldiers that were back in the rear, it's not like they didn't believe me until the very end, but like I would just see them like twiddling their thumbs or just, not doing anything, right? And I'm like, why are you still here? They're like, well, ma'am, it's only 2 o'clock. Like I have to stay to 5. I said, who told you how to stay to 5? And they're like, well, all company commanders before me, like that's the thing. You come in at 8 and you stay to 5. It's like, no, that is ridiculous. Like when you like, I want dedicated work periods where you work hard, but I also believe in play hard. And honestly, like it is that mental reset where creativity and like sense of purpose and belonging and like quality of life around your job happens. So go home. And like it's like they never believed me and they were always like timid, but then eventually we got to the point when they realized that I was serious. And like when you're done for your work for the day, you go home just like I do, right? I don't unnecessarily stay at work to 5 because I have to. I go home.
How many of them went to their next company commander and were emailing you like, ma'am, I miss you so much. I
Oh,
can't
I
go
still
home
get
now.
those texts. I still, I mean, this is like 4 years ago. I still get texts, right? Because I was different, right?
You were different, right? And that's what we're here talking about is you're different, but those things are so important. And for me, I've been in emergency services for 30 years now. 15 years ago, I feel like we just started talking about this importance of sleep And it's taken me a solid, I'd say 10 years to even get into some form of good habits to
Yeah.
help me with my sleep. And that's
Yep.
thanks to folks like you and what you're putting out there. But what are some of those kind of like key takeaways that we can squeeze into like 4 minutes of what should people be doing to help them get on a schedule that's not really a schedule because we don't have a schedule?
I think you have to have certain things outside of sleep that are consistent, right? So we always talk about the circadian clock. There's timekeepers. The technical term are Zeitgeber. So Zeitgeber is German for timekeeper. There's certain Zeitgebers that entrain our sleep and wake rhythms, and like sure, sleep is one of them and light is another, but exercise and food intake. There is actually an exercise, it's called an exercise entrainable oscillator and a food entrainable oscillator that lies within the same brain area as that which controls sleep. And so that's what you have to do is like when you get off shift, right? That's when you do your training. Or if you do your training right before your shift, that will help you get and stay on that schedule, just like with food intake. Like either you're eating the same profiles of macronutrients or you're eating the same types of food at a consistent time. You're not eating at, unpredictable times. So that's, one of the biohacks we have in our back pocket that we like to provide to you.
That listen, I can tell you from my own life when I worked out, whether when I was coaching. So when I coached, I would either like work out before my class that I coached or after, whatever it was. But in
Yeah.
my life, when whether it was I was always working out at 9 a.m. or I was always working out at 4:45, taking that class or whatever it was, I was in my best shape, let's say. Same
Yep.
with running. When I was running every morning, these days, most recently, I am all over the place with just life and kids and
Yeah.
podcasting, and I suck right now. I'm getting great sleep at night, I can tell you that much, but physically, I freaking suck. Like I know it. And now you just said that, and I'm like, maybe I should start getting up at 7 and just working out every day at 7 because
Yeah,
a
I
smart
mean,
person told me that.
even if it's like that's kind of what I do when I travel. I sometimes don't know when I'm going to work out. I mean, I'm fortunate in that I'm going to like military bases that have nice gyms. So if I have 10 to 15 minutes, I'll just get after it. But like that's what I appreciate about we'll talk about CrossFit, like the girls benchmarks. Like whether I
Sure.
have the weight or not, I'll do like 30 clean and jerks with a dumbbell for a time, or if there's a wall ball, right? I hate Karen, but I'll do Karen. Like just something that's super high intensity that I know will get that physiological stimulus response for fitness for the day, and then just move on. I don't
I,
think, I think that's one thing CrossFit has taught me is right before CrossFit as a gymnast and as a track and field athlete, I just assume like you had to work out for 2 to 3 hours a day like we did in order to get that training stimulus. And then I realized like I got my ass handed to me almost every day at the CrossFit gym doing a 20-minute workout. Um, so I think you just have to get in the mindset that like 20 minutes can be enough sometime. I think CrossFit's methodology in terms of increased physiological fitness is proven. And it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be complex to get a workout in.
No, and I think for folks like me in the emergency services, you in the military, that's it. I need that 15, 20 minutes. And if I can get that, boom, I'm good. And it's that
Yeah.
matter of that consistency and time because of my German word oscillator thing in my head that you said.
Zeitgeber.
That like that guy, that's like Gaber. I get back into that and that's what I'm missing because I've actually been trying to figure out. I'm like, I will not lie. I've been doing a lot of stuff around my house. So I haven't been working out as much as I
That's
normally
still
do.
functional fitness.
It is, but it's listen. I built one of those gazebos for my deck. I
Oh, nice.
think I went up. I put the roof together yesterday.
Yeah.
I think I spent more time up and down a ladder yesterday than I have. I work. I'm a ladder captain. Than I have ladders at work in like the past 5 years.
Yeah.
I
No,
must have
that's,
went between dropping screws and nuts and everything hurt when I woke up this morning. But
yeah.
getting
Well,
into
I
that
mean,
system is big.
the blue zones, right? That's what like those um, communities that have centenarians, like that's what they do, right? They have their gardeners or they like forage for their food or they climb up mountains to like go visit their friends. Like it doesn't, fitness doesn't have to be complicated.
Oh, I love that you said that. I do love that you said that. This has been like an amazing little chat we've had here about so much stuff. It's unbelievable. Um, where can folks find you online, in person? You're going to be anywhere? I know last year you taught in Ohio at
Mhm.
the Fire and EMS Health and Wealth
Yeah,
Expo with the Mouth of
Jim,
the
I
South Jimmy
yeah,
Hart.
he's one of
I
my good
so
friends.
wanted to be at that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, he's such a good friend of mine. I was on his I don't know if he ever told you this story. We had to re-record his podcast because apparently I
Wait,
said
who was it? I missed the name you said.
Jim. Jim, I always mispronounce his last name, Bernica.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
Um, so he had a podcast, and we actually had to re-record because apparently I said the F word too much, and fire engineering was like, we can't publish that. So I'm always mindful of saying the F word now. Um,
You could drop F bombs on this. I'm from New Jersey. This is
the
the
fi-
size up. We have no rules.
I kind of blame that. So the day we did the podcast is when I got the second dose of the COVID vaccine. So I already had like a head cold, fever, like, all the symptoms you get post COVID vaccine. And I think that was part of it. It was as like, I
Blame it.
wasn't
It's
there
the first.
physiologically. And so swearing was a way to mitigate my
I've
own
seen
physiological health issues.
I've seen and heard so many things blamed on the COVID vaccine, but definitely not dropping F bombs
Yeah.
as one of
Yeah.
the things to blame. So I'll take it. We'll add that to the list.
Yeah.
But yeah, where can
Well,
folks find you, or where are you going to be soon? We went totally off topic again.
so I am pretty active on Instagram. I don't use X or any other platform. You won't find me on LinkedIn. I hate LinkedIn. I already have a job. I'm not looking for a new job, and I'm not also looking to like help sell your stuff. So
Can I
my
wait? I'm going to interrupt you. I'm interrupting. I'm on LinkedIn, right? I'm a captain, fire department captain. Do you know
Yeah,
who wants to hire me like every week because I'm a captain?
probably
Apparently
the U.S.
Macy's.
Navy.
No, Macy's. Macy's
Oh,
employs
wow.
captains. I don't know what they do, but literally they really want me to be a Macy's captain. Not really sure what you do for Macy's
Oh
as a
my
captain, but
God.
LinkedIn
Well,
wants me
I
to do
mean,
that.
I guess
Yeah,
it'd be
thanks.
cool to have a side hustle in, the Macy's New York store, but I don't know.
Sure. I got better. I'll find a better side hustle than that. I
Um,
could work in women's shoes like Al Bundy. I'm there. Hello.
oh yeah, that'd be great.
Anyway, so you're on
That's not
Instagram.
diagnosable on the DSM at all.
Whoops, my bad.
Yeah. No, so my Instagram is Doc Jock ZZZ.
Nice.
So
And again, you put out some great stuff out there. You have all your published stuff. You show up at these things, but it's something I think all in all, like looking at sleep from the emergency services side, it's just something you have to consider. And, keep that in mind, folks that are listening now. Like it could solve a lot of your problems. And it's simple changes, like getting that clock when your workouts are, or not staring at your screen. Like one thing I talk about with sleep, if I go on a call at night, I have a hard time now later in life getting back to sleep. But I definitely am not staring at my phone. As hard of a time as I'm having, I know that's a bad thing, so I have to keep it away as far as I can.
yeah, no, even if you are on your phone at night, like those blue light blocking glasses do go a long way. It's just I remind people it's not the light itself, it's also the psychological stimulus, right?
Sure.
So like of being on TikTok or watching a Marvel movie, that's going to arouse you and you need to like not be aroused, well, unless it's like something else, right? That actually does help with sleep. But besides that, like you want to be, ramping down your brain waves. You don't want to be ramping them up.
It really does help with sleep, though.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Come
Okay.
on, everyone
Good to
knows
know.
that. You don't need science to
Good
know
to
that.
I just want to make sure. I mean, you're a scientist, so there's got to be a scientific study that's out there saying it, like somewhere. I'm
I
sure
mean,
someone's
that'd
done
be
it
a
and you've
really
read it.
easy scientific study to recruit for. So, um, it's just like
I
my
think,
my wife, she's a neuroscientist too, and she studies like human sexual behavior. And she did a study once like easiest study in the world to recruit for. She was working with a nutraceutical company, so they were trying to do like randomized clinical trials for basically it's an over-the-counter supplement that improves erections or like increases erections, and she thought it was going to be so easy to recruit for because right, college students who literally, or anyone, male, healthy male, gets paid money to have sex twice a week, right? That was the criteria, is you had to take these pills, whether you had the placebo or the active pill, and you had to have sex at least twice a week and get paid to do it, right, for like 6 weeks on end. She ended up having a really hard time recruiting the study, and I
Hell
didn't even
yeah.
think about this because she was a female researcher. And think about it, you're recruiting men and you're giving them like essentially the equivalent of Viagra. These men don't want this woman to know whether, like, my they knew my wife was married to a woman or not, uh that they had a problem, right? So it was like really a funny like part of human sexuality, right? It was just like, oh, no
I was
wonder why it's
thinking
so hard
more.
for.
I would be more afraid of like not wanting to let her know like, well, it worked or it didn't work or this like
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like you're getting rated like you're it's like the Olympics like she's holding up. So all I see is her like 10. And then it's like no
exactly.
2. I don't want to be the 2, especially if you're young. Older men, I guess at this point we all don't care anymore because we're just so old. But younger men,
Yeah.
yeah, that's gonna be oof. Because you're a
Yep.
10. Like when you're in your 20s, you're a 10 no matter what you are.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
boys listening, this is not what this podcast is about. Boys listening, when you get up into your 40s, you're a 10 too, but it really doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Well, it's funny, the end result of this study, because like obviously she didn't get the sample size she wanted, was if they thought it worked, they ended up keeping the pills and not giving them back. So essentially, like there was, because if you didn't use certain like pills, you were supposed to give them back. But the guys who essentially thought that it worked, whether they got placebo or not, like basically just lied to my wife and said that they lost the pills when in reality they ended up keeping them. So it ended up being
well
like
the
this
black
weird psychological experiment.
I started this podcast crying from being sad, and I'm finishing it crying from laughing at what we're talking about right now. But do you know the going black market rate on those pills is through the roof, or at least it
Oh, I'm
was a
sure.
while
Well,
ago. So
it's on the market now. I forget the company's called Nutrisource. I don't know. Here, let me look it up. It's I think it's
we're
like
not
ginger
plugging
and ginkgo biloba. So Nutrisource.
it. Hey, if they're looking for a sponsor, the podcast, the size up is
I mean,
always,
I'm
and the
sure
size up. Oh, Jesus, the name alone now. Look at what you're doing to me. I did not think this podcast was going down this
yeah.
road with the
It's
size up podcast sponsored by,
I think this is it. Rugia, maybe. I don't know.
but scientific studies that go into these things, which do exist. So
Exactly. Yeah.
keep it
I
in
don't
mind,
know.
kids, if you're looking for something to do in life.
You never know where your life will, you never know where science will take you. Trust me. So
This
I
is
can't
true.
find
I'm not a
them,
big
but yeah,
science
and
guy.
I remember
I
it had
believe
like
you.
high dose ginger and ginkgo biloba or bilboa, however you say that in it.
That stuff, all that stuff that's good
All
for,
that
for what you
stuff.
got to do there. Perfect. Let's hit the size up 10 because I know you have a hard stop and this could
Yeah.
I feel like this always takes forever, but I feel like I've said this with a few guests. Usually I know them prior, but like if we had a show together, we would never get anything accomplished, but so many people would listen to it. Like,
Well, it's called rampant ADHD. That's what it's called.
isn't it? I have fireman ADHD. It's not undiagnosed, but most of us have that for
Oh, I
sure.
do.
So
Yeah, I have. I have. I'm a highly functional. I've never been diagnosed, but I'm sure I would. So,
I am not highly functional. I just do a lot of things and I do them subpar. All right, size up 10. Here we go. Folks, if you're still listening, this is going to be interesting. Which one are you picking, beach or mountains?
um, I think earlier in life I would have said beach. Now I would say mountains. I want to retire in a Tennessee mountain home.
Nice. How about, is it a night out or a night in for you?
Again, I think that's just life. A night in is far preferred than a night out. I lived my 20s and my
I do
teens.
I do agree with that. And I do know our mutual friend Rick has a lot of nights in now with those twins that he's got. So,
Yes, he does. Yeah. I'm a,
and
all about a night in.
I feel you on that. How about a movie everyone needs to see?
So I like dark movies and like controversial movies. I think one of the best, most suspenseful movies that has stood the test of time is Basic Instinct with Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone. That it
I
like
got you.
I feel like if a kid watched that, he or she would be mesmerized. I mean, I know it's not, safe for kid movie, but I feel like that's one movie that will span across generations.
And it's one of those movies too that you're 100% right about, but it's like never on anywhere ever.
No,
Like you never see it. It's never been restreamed again. It's not on, I'm sure it's on some streaming service somewhere, but like it's just not one of those that pops up in your movies you may want to watch.
yeah, no, it's one of those movies. I mean, I feel like every few years I like need to rewatch it to see if I have like the same physiological response, and I always do, right? And I love that Newman is in it, right? It just like he makes that character in that movie just like he made the character in Jurassic Park, you know?
Oh, 100%. And you kind of, and it's, again, it's a movie I kind of forgot about. I may have to break it out. I may have to see where we can stream it. So,
Yeah. She definitely was
all right,
typecasted in
this,
that role, but rightfully so.
yeah, 100%. All right, here's the hardest one, as I always say. You're on a cross country road trip. Who is your celebrity co pilot going to be?
Oh, that's easy, John Stewart. I love that man. I like, you know how they have the like uh who would you invite at your dinner table, living or dead? It would be Ben Franklin and
Sure,
John
sure.
Stewart. Like, I'm sorry, there's no question.
Easy. Good. Most people are like, oh, no idea. You were ready to go with it. So I love
He would
it.
be, so I don't know if you know this, the astronauts get three people that they're allowed to talk to from the International Space Station. Um, he would be the number one person I'd call. So I'd tell NASA, like, call John Stewart right now.
I did not know that, but that is
Hmm.
awesome. And
Yeah.
that's like a total way to like meet, John Stewart. Like there you go. Like, hey, he's not going to turn down a call from the International Space Station at all.
Yeah.
So
Well,
good
it's
plan.
it's funny. I heard so I found this out from listening to some. I think it was Chelsea Handler or someone, but like that most of the astronauts call at least one or two comedians. Like that's in their top three. So
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that at all. So that's awesome. All right, this one I already probably know the answer, but do you make your bed every day?
no, actually, I don't.
Oh
I
my
am the
God.
anti-bed maker. But I did it for
You
a
just
while, and I
rock
thought
the
it was
world.
stupid. I don't. I know that book, "Make Your Bed" by Stanley Crystal. No, I am the anti-bed maker. I'm different.
I may just change the name of this podcast to be the difference of the anti bed maker because I thought that was going to be the shoe in question.
No,
Good
not at
Lord,
all.
I'm done. Done. I don't even want to go anymore now. This podcast is
No,
over. All right, five more questions. I'll let you answer them, but I'm so disappointed in you right now. It's not even
you
funny.
should
Like
be.
this is my dad voice. You have my dad voice coming out because I totally was going the other way. How about a book everyone needs to read?
Um, I think "Make Friends and Influence People" by Dale Carnegie. I mean, I'm not really big on reading leadership books because I've learned over time of reading a few, like it's just everyone's own personal experiences on leadership. There's no like formulaic approach to leadership, which I agree with.
Sure.
But there's something about that book, and it goes back to that idea we talked about earlier of knowing your audience and how important it is to, put yourself in that person's shoes and to be humble and like to feed off their energy and their nonverbal cues in order to have a conversation.
I love it, man. That is yeah. That's that. Okay, number one. Next one. We're ending that there. Highways or back roads? Which one are you taking?
Oh, always the back roads. I have a whip, so I love to ride that whip, even if it ends up taking me 20 or 30 minutes longer. I gotta get my money's worth out of my car.
You're out there. You're out there spinning them.
Yeah, well, I do go, try to find all the hot spots to avoid the popo, but Not always
Oh,
successful.
can't always be successful with that one, but maybe I'm sure if you're like, hey, I could help you with your sleeves, I'll let you go. So
Yeah, no, I've actually have horrible luck with getting out of tickets. Actually, it's sometimes if I conveniently have my uniform right there and they see I'm in the military, that actually works against me. And it's probably because I'm a field grade officer. And if you think about it, a
sure,
lot of people who are police are retired military enlisted. And so they're like, oh, look at this fucking officer. I'm going to get her.
you're
Right.
out.
Because,
Ticket for you, friend.
yeah. So I just need to change the rank on my
How
uniform that I keep in the front seat.
and then you're good to go. Yeah, totally good.
Yeah.
Where am I at here? How about a bucket list place to visit?
Um, Ooh, that's a good one. I have traveled a lot for my work to Key West. Um, I love going back there every time. I think it is the most beautiful and also just laid back place in the country or even the world because like you don't need a car there. You just, ride your beach bike around everywhere. And like going back to politics, what I love about Key West is like it is the gayest and most conservative place in the US. Like literally you will have like pride flags next to like MAGA, Trump signs, and the whole island's like that. And these people just live in happiness and harmony, right? Because of the environment. And I absolutely am just fascinated by that place from the perspective of like human society. And, it's to me, it's like a grand sociological experiment.
I love every minute of Key West. I have a son named after a bar that no longer exists in Key
Which
West.
one?
So it is.
Which one?
It was called Finnegan's Wake.
Oh, I know Finnegan's Wake. Yeah, I've been going there for a long time. My wife and I um, got married in Key West.
Awesome. Let's
Yeah.
go. We're
Yep.
in. Tracy and I are in. Let us know when you're heading down.
Yeah,
We
sure,
need to get there. I have
absolutely.
two tattoos that I got in Key West. Like I love it there. That I'm
Nice.
right there with just about like there I thought you were gonna say in a way, I feel like there's no politics in Key West. Like it's a place in America where you just have every type of person converging to
Yeah.
just relax and have a good time. Just
Yeah,
be
no,
chill. Like,
I think maybe that's what I was trying to say is like, I'm like considered a local now. Like it's funny. I go to like the same eating spots, right? Or the same watering holes. And it's like they've seen me enough there. They're like, oh, they give me the local resident discount, which I take great pride in. But riding my beach bike around like all the different neighborhoods and stuff where the our dive school is. That's I think where you see it. You're not going to see it on Duval Street, but to your point, it's like
yep,
you have people who are on extreme ends of the political spectrum who go down there and like they all
sure.
are freaking hugging at the end of the night, and I love it.
Yeah, no, it is one of my favorite places in the world. So I'm right there with you on that one.
Yeah.
All right, two more questions because you got to go. Which one is it for you? Is it football or football?
Oh, football. There's only such thing as American football, and I saw a meme. I think yesterday or the day before about the Pope is going to rename it to soccer.
Okay, that's very controversial on this podcast. We're not getting into it. Last
Okay.
one, and again, I feel like you've done this. Everybody does this, the whole podcast. The best piece of advice you could give to your younger self.
I think the biggest piece of advice is, and I'm going to steal this. I'm a big lover of hip hop rap music. Is if you ain't got haters, your shit ain't popping. Like I think I spent the first, half of my life like seeking validation and or trying to mold myself into what people told me I should do instead of trusting my gut and just being in doing what I thought was right. And so that's a philosophy that I do try to live by now is like, no matter what decision I make, somebody's going to be a hater, right? It doesn't matter. I will never be right in everyone's eyes. I just have to, if I do the math, I do the analysis and I trust my gut, like I'm just going to go with it. So if you ain't got haters, your shit ain't popping.
I love it. The best podcasts that I've ever listened to or hosted have some form of a rap line reference in them, in my humble opinion. So thank you for ending it with that.
Of course. I mean, that's another thing Rick and I bond over is the love of old school rap music. As we're sitting on the stoop,
Oh my God.
smoking our black and mild and
I'm
drinking our
so
Coors.
coming to Manhattan. The next time you come to see him, I'm so getting on a train and getting
We're
my
gonna
ass
we're
there
gonna do a little
because
stoop sit. How about that? Right up on
sure, I'm
74th. We'll sit on
100%
one
in.
of the stoops and chill.
That is the best. Thank you so much for making this happen today. We had some scheduling conflicts and this has been great. We have to do it again. Sound good?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for your time. Thank you, Pip. And again, I'm sorry for your loss, but we will get through this.
Oh no, and I agree. I too am sorry for your recent loss. And with that, I hope everybody had a great time listening to us just banter all over the place about different things. If you want to learn more about sleep, definitely check out Allison wherever she is in the world and her social medias. But it's just a super cool person, like totally not a science geek like she could have been, because you have to be the different. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's something that I've learned throughout my life and that I'm trying to impress on my boys and trying to impress on all those around me. So for the Size Up by National Fire Radio, this is Pip because what you do off the job matters.
National Fire Radio.